For 7 years, TLC sold America a fantasy, a family of 19 children who proved that purity, faith, and a total rejection of birth control could somehow add up to wholesome primetime television. Then in May 2015, while the network happened to be running a 19 kids and counting marathon,
Duggar. My name is Jeremiah Duggar. My name is Jason Duggar.
replaying that same fantasy on a loop, a leaked police report revealed that the family's eldest son had spent years molesting his own sisters. TLC's first move was not to pull the marathon. It kept airing for hours, selling family values to an audience that was simultaneously reading the headline underneath them. When the network finally issued a statement, it reached for the only language reality TV knows how to use in a crisis. Deeply saddened, thoughts and prayers, heartbreaking situation, the kind of sentence a PR department writes when it has run out of ways to say, "We looked away," without actually saying it.
I mean, it really is when you think about 10 years of our lives.
This was a show built entirely on the claim that one family had life figured out. Faith, modesty, courtship, the whole blueprint for a better way to live. What it actually delivered was a 7-year case study in an institution protecting its own image instead of the people inside it.
I can went to another show and another show, and we've allowed him just to film our whole lives.
And TLC would get the chance to prove that statement again. 11 years later, a second Duggar son would make headlines for an almost identical reason, and the network's script barely needed updating. The Duggar story didn't start on TLC. It started in 2004 when a small documentary called 14 Children and Pregnant Again
Life, and some of the most significant ones have been the courtships and marriages.
introduced America to a homeschooling family in Arkansas that even then sounded like a punchline waiting to happen. TLC saw something else, a built-in content engine that never stopped producing new material because the family itself kept producing new family. In September 2008, the network launched 17 Kids and Counting, and the title became a running joke against itself, updated to 18, then 19 as Michelle Duggar kept having children roughly once a year. On paper, it worked. The show's audience grew from 1,440,000 viewers in its first season to 2,450,000 viewers by its 10th, numbers most cable networks would sell organs for.
Was knit to his, and my daddy allowed us to get engaged at Christmas.
Part of the appeal was genuine. In the middle of an era defined by Jersey Shore fistfights and Real Housewives wine throwing, here was a family that seemed to have actually figured something out. Structure, faith, a courtship system where couples got to know each other under supervision instead of through a hookup app. Jim Bob and Michelle built an entire publishing arm around that image. Books with titles like A Love That Multiplies, marketed as proof that their method produced happy, well-adjusted children.
Dress. So this really was my first time to actually shop for a wedding dress.
But the same family that built its brand on total transparency, cameras in the kitchen, cameras at the courthouse wedding, cameras at the dinner table, ran on one rule that never made it to air. Anything serious stayed inside the family and got handled their way, on their own terms, away from outsiders, including, as it would eventually turn out, the police. Jim Bob, for his part, personally negotiated every contract the network ever offered, a detail nobody thought twice about at the time.
Future goal is a builder. I actually wanted to be a singer, and then I wanted to be a builder.
That rule held for years. It was the kind of arrangement that works perfectly, right up until it doesn't. The cracks didn't appear so much as detonate. On May 21st, 2015, In Touch Weekly published a 2006 police report detailing years of abuse within the family, allegations against the eldest son, Josh Duggar, involving 5 minors, 4 of them his own sisters, allegations he later admitted to in a public statement. The statute of limitations had already expired by the time anyone outside the family found out, which meant the only consequence available to the public was outrage, and the outrage arrived fast. Here's the detail that tells you everything about how television actually works. TLC was airing a 19 Kids and Counting marathon at the exact moment the story broke, and instead of cutting away immediately, the network let it keep running for hours. Smiling family.
This is weird. Why is this person, okay, you need to back up, like this is my personal space. It kind of felt weird, like right in your face.
Modest dresses, wholesome courtship montages, broadcasting underneath a headline that was actively rewriting what the show meant in real time. Screenshots of that exact split, the marathon schedule sitting right next to the breaking news alert, were everywhere online within a day. When TLC finally responded, it pulled every episode and issued a statement so carefully neutral it could have applied to a weather event.
So that little baby fingers were not getting all tangled and pulling it out.
Deeply saddened, our thoughts and prayers are with the family and the victims. 2 months later, the cancellation became official, but by then the network's slowness had already done its own damage.
This stuff will make it last for 3 days.
Hashtags like cancel the Duggars, ditch the Duggars, and boycott TLC trended for days, and advertisers moved faster than the network did. Walgreens, Payless, Choice Hotels, Pure Leaf, and General Mills all pulled their ads before TLC pulled the plug. The family tried the standard redemption tour, a sit-down with Megyn Kelly on Fox News, Jim Bob and Michelle explaining that this was a difficult chapter they had handled internally years ago, as if internal handling was the achievement and not the problem. A few months later, it surfaced that Josh had maintained an account on Ashley Madison.
Different family members, but they just have a camera on their shoulder instead.
The website built specifically for arranging affairs. The internet reacted exactly how you would expect when the face of conservative.
The TV crew not only captures our daily life, they also document our ever-changing looks.
Family values got caught using a website literally designed for cheating, and the redemption tour quietly ended somewhere around there. TLC, somehow undeterred, tried again. In December 2015, it launched Counting On, a spin-off focused on the married Duggar children, built around the one rule everyone now understood: Josh stays off camera. For 6 years, that containment strategy worked, right up until April 29th, 2021, when Josh was arrested, this time for receiving and possessing child sexual abuse material. Investigators found that he had installed a password-protected partition on a computer at the used car lot he owned, specifically to dodge the pornography detection software already running on the machine, and used the same password he used for his family accounts. TLC canceled Counting On 2 months later. In December 2021, a jury convicted him in under a day. At sentencing in May 2022, the judge handed down 151 months, just over 12 and a half years, plus a $10,000 fine and 2 decades of supervised release once he gets out. His own cousin, Amy Duggar King, told reporters she hoped his time behind bars came with what she called absolute torture, which is not generally the kind of family endorsement a brand survives on national television.
Those people are awful friendly, aren't they?
His booking photo showed him smiling, and within hours it was everywhere. Reddit threads picking apart the exact look on his face, side-by-side comparisons with old courtship interviews, where he used to lecture teenagers about guarding their eyes from impurity. Appeals followed for years. The 8th Circuit upheld the conviction in 2023. The Supreme Court declined to step in, and as recently as June 2026, a federal judge rejected his latest attempt, none of it ever touching the actual verdict, only the paperwork around it. At this point, the only thing he had successfully appealed was everyone else's patience. And the family's house of cards kept folding even where nobody had to break a law to do it.
Having so many siblings to talk to and to relate to.
In her 2023 memoir, Counting the Cost, Jill Duggar alleged that she and her siblings were never paid for a decade of appearing on the family's shows, and that her father effectively tricked her into signing away her rights to compensation. When People magazine asked Jim Bob and Michelle to respond, they declined to engage with any specifics, issuing a statement about preferring to handle family conflict privately rather than in public, the exact same instinct that had failed everyone back in 2015. The same year, Sister Ginger published her own memoir describing the family's religious framework as something closer to a cult than a parenting philosophy. And the Amazon docuseries Shiny Happy People put the entire belief system on trial in front of an audience TLC could no longer control. Clips from that documentary spread across TikTok within days, stitched together with captions pointing out that a family which spent a decade preaching modesty had apparently never modeled honesty. A family that built a decade-long brand on the claim of total transparency turned out to be hiding nearly everything that mattered: who was being protected, who was actually being paid, and who was still capable of doing real harm once the cameras stopped rolling. By 2023, the only thing left of the original wholesome image was the merchandising.
Doing your laundry.
And then just when it looked like the story had finally run out of new low points to hit, It turned out the family had one more brother left to test that theory. Here's the uncomfortable structural truth. 19 Kids and Counting was never actually a show about a family living a wholesome life on camera. It was a show about a family managing the appearance of one, and those are very different products. The whole format ran on one rule established back at the very start. Anything serious gets handled internally, by the family, on the family's own terms, with outsiders kept at arm's length, including, when necessary, law enforcement. That rule wasn't a flaw that crept in over time. It was the rotten foundation the entire house was built on. When that foundation finally gave way in 2015,
He's like, how did she know my name?
I think I met you before.
TLC didn't tear the house down and start over. They slapped on a new coat of paint, changed the name on the mailbox to Counting On, and kept hosting open houses for everyone except the one room nobody was allowed to walk into. It's the reality television version of flipping a house with black mold behind the drywall. You don't rip out the mold. You just hang nicer curtains and list it under a new agent. And here's the part that should genuinely worry anyone who thought this story ended when TLC finally walked away for good in 2021. The cameras leaving didn't change the family's internal governance. It just removed the only outside witnesses. In March 2026, Joseph Duggar, the 7th of the 19 children, was arrested on a child molestation charge stemming from an incident during a 2020 family vacation. Years after the show stopped filming and long after anyone could claim a TLC producer was somewhere in the room. No network deal left to protect. No sponsors left to lose. Just the family itself, posting a one-line blog statement within a day about being shocked and heartbroken, the exact same script they had already used in 2015 and again in 2021, just with a different name swapped into the same sentence. That's the difference between bad luck and a broken structure. Bad luck doesn't repeat itself with a different sibling every few years.
So I did, and she took it home as a lifetime treasure.
Running the identical playbook down to the wording of the statement afterward. A structural failure does, precisely because nobody ever actually fixed the foundation. They just stopped letting people inside the house to see it. So no, this wasn't a show that simply fell apart on its own. It was a structure that was always going to produce this exact outcome.
It's been a decade since we invited television viewers into our home.
On a schedule nobody could see coming until the headlines started doing the counting for them instead. There was, briefly, something real in the early seasons. A family that seemed to have found an answer to modern chaos. Less screen time, more structure, kids who could fold a fitted sheet and recite scripture in the same afternoon. For about 6 years, that was a genuinely compelling pitch, and millions of viewers bought it because, on some level, who wouldn't want to believe a family had actually figured it out? But the pitch only worked as long as nobody looked too closely at what the structure was actually built to protect. Once that became impossible to ignore, in 2015, in 2021, and again in 2026, the wholesome packaging stopped being a selling point and became the joke itself, a brand built entirely on the claim of having nothing to hide, run by a family that, it turned out, had almost nothing else. TLC eventually got the message and walked away for good. The Duggars never really got the message at all. They just lost the camera crew that used to be watching. Turns out the family that spent a decade teaching America how to live couldn't even follow its own rule book.
But then, like, looking back, you're like, oh, that was a bad idea. Somebody should have pointed that out to me, please, really?
And by the time the cameras finally stopped rolling, the only thing multiplying faster than the children were the scandals. Like, subscribe, and tell us which reality show deserves to be put out of its misery next.